We're going to be learning as a schus for Shleimo, for Ilan Chaya Bas Serach. We're at the Mishnah on Daf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. Then the Mishnah is talking about Hamoitzi Shivrei Tzlomim. In the first Mishnah, we talked about a picture or a depiction of a person, or according to Tanakama, Rameir said any kind of picture. Then we saw the Rabbanan who said no, it has to be specifically a person holding something. And then we saw Reb Shimon Gamliel who said was even more restrictive. It has to be he said no. He said that if it's holding anything, it doesn't have to be bedafka anything. But if the picture is of someone holding something, that's an avodah zara, and it's also. So Zok the Mishnah. If you have one of these pictures that Chayshish was nevad, it was worshipped, but then you don't find the whole picture, you just find a piece of it. Hare'elu mutar, it's mutar, and Rashi explains the reason, which will be clear in the Gemara. Hare'elu mutar, and time mefarish Gemara, the chavi shleimus suffik of them. First of all, even if it was a full picture, we're not certain that it was nevad. It's not an avodah zarah per se. It's something that sometimes is used at avodah zarah. Ve'imtim salema of them, ema batlam. It's also possible that they will mavatal it. It means you're finding it in pieces. If a guy takes his avodah zarah and smashes it on the ground and says, "I've got nothing. My horse didn't come through at Preakness, and now I've lost all faith in you." And he smashes his avodah zarah. The avodah zarah loses its chashivas as an avodah zarah. It's not treated as an avodah zarah. That's also. So Rashi says, so it's a svek sveka that possibly it was never nevad, and secondly, even if it was nevad, maybe it was bottle. So this is a new concept that a guy can remove the isser, the status as an avodah zara by destroying and having a mind to destroy not his avodah zara. Matzah tavnis yad or tavnis regel. The Mishnah continues, however, if he found a portion of a depiction of a person, but it was only the hand or only the foot, but it wasn't pieces of the hand or pieces of it. Wasn't, you see a whole hand or a whole foot, harelu asur, and those are asur, because such a thing is sometimes the goyim, some people either a hand or a foot. There's such a thing that you could find. You sometimes find these pendants of a little hand. So people are over it. So since it's possible it could be nevad on its own. We don't know for sure that this is a broken, larger avodah zara. Maybe it's just an avodah zara on its own. So therefore, it's us. Zok the Gemara. Amar Shmuel, afilu shivrei avodas kechav. Shmuel says that when Mishnah said Hamoitzi shivrei tzlomim, he says that's not lav dafka. It means even if he found not just something that could have been nevad, even if it's an avodah zara itself, if he found an avodah zara, something that we know was nevad, but you find it in pieces, it's going to be mutter. Our Mishnah said tzlamim. It's mashma only tzlamim are awesome for the reason that Rashi said it. At this point, the Gemara doesn't yet know the reasoning behind it, but the Gemara is just deducing based on the lashon, making an inference for the fact that we said that tzlamim are mutter, avodah zara itself would be asur, or else why would we say tzlamim? We would say the bigger chiddush. If avodah zara is also that's broken is also mutter, it should say avodah zara shivei avodah zara. So tomorrow who didn't afilu shivrei avodas kechavim? No, ein chanami. If you find a broken avodas kechavim, it's also going to be mutter. V'hadik tani shivrei tzlamim, that which is said of a tzelem and not of an avodah zara itself. Mishum the Kabbalah Mishnah Sefer was really for the second part of the Mishnah. Matzah Tamnis Yad Tam V'Zarin Le'yu Asurim. We wanted to say the second part of the Mishnah, the Chumrah part. We wanted to say that that's true even by Tzlamin. So therefore, we said the whole Mishnah by Tzlamin. But it's not to tell you that if you find an Ovid Kechavim broken, that it's not going to be mutter.
Ovid Kechavim means like a statue.
Chavim just means that it could be a picture also, but if it's a picture that you saw that they were all bowing down to, that's definitely, it means that it's definitely an Avodah Zara. It's not just a tzelem, that's a potential Avodah Zara. Yeah. So according to Shmuel holds that Rashi explains that he doesn't hold because of Svek Sveika. He's disagreeing with Rashi said in the Mishnah. Amar Shmuel, the Rashi and the Gemara. Amar Shmuel, afilu shivrei avichavim, loy tem b'shivrei tzlam dafka mishum d'shem loy avdem me'aylam. Afilu k'shah yushlem afilu shivrei avichavim sheyunim she'avdua. That we saw. So this is what Rashi is explaining, that avichavim is not just a different type. It means that you saw that it was never. K'shah yishlem mutar and the kivin the nishbro shuv ein avden oisa. He holds once it's broken, it's no longer object of veneration. It's it loses its status. Tnan. Motzo tavnis yad tavnis regel hare'elu asur. We said in the Sefer of our Mishnah that if you found a piece that includes a whole hand or a whole foot, it's awesome. Because it's never. Since we said that we believe that something that broke, it's bottle, why don't we say that even if you found a piece, why don't we say, if you don't hold like Shmuel, leaving aside Shmuel, if you say like we said, because it's a sveka, why don't we say that this should also become mutter? Hagam, it's true. Maybe a hand and a foot are worshipped on their own. But this is we could see that it was formerly part of something else. So why don't we say the breaking shows that that the person might have wanted to be mevatel? And we don't know for sure that it was ever worshipped in this that this was ever worshipped on its own either. I mean, it's just a picture, right? We're not talking about something that we know was never. We're talking about slumim. So why don't we have the same svek on a hand or a foot? It's true that a person could be oived avodah zara on its own, but we all still have a suffix that maybe it was broken to be mevatel from its original status. So Tigrim Shmuel, but I know I'll be son. We're not talking about stam, a piece of a hand or a piece of a foot. We're talking about where it's placed on a pedestal. It's clearly chashiv. So therefore, we lose the suffix that maybe it was never. We know that it was never. So, or Taisus actually says that you see that it was never broken from anything else altogether. So he says it's on a base. It was made to be like that. It was supposed to be never, which in the case you wonder what the chiddush is. If it's something that was made to be never, why wouldn't it be never? Right? He's saying the basis to separate this hand and this foot, so it's the only possibility, really. Zok the Gemara. Itmar. We're talking about, until now, we've been talking about a Ovid Kechavim, you found, or it's Salam, that was broken by a guy, and so we're talking about that, we're saying that it could become Mavot. What happened if it wasn't broken intentionally by the guy, but it broke on its own? Rabbi Yochanan says we don't consider that to be a bittul. It happened on its own, but the guy still loves his avodah zara, so it still is an avodah zara. Will be asa bahana. Shimon Shlakish Amar muteris. He says it's mutter. Yochanan says it's asa because the person, his action of breaking it, the guy breaking it, is what causes it to lose its status. He says it's likely that he was that isn't that the when it broke, the guy he sees his idol break. He probably says it's not this is not a avodah zarah for me. He'll say if it can't save itself, what's it going to do for me? I'm going to be praying to something that can't even stop itself from cracking. How's it going to help me in all my endeavors? Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan is going to ask a series of questions on Reish Lakish, who holds that something that an avodah zarah that breaks on its own, the guy is being mevatel it from its status of an avodah zarah. V'roish dagan ushtei kapis yadav krusis. It says that this is talking about the where was this? Where's the pasuk? Yashkima babayim mavzvini dagan noifal. This is in Shmuel. The Plishtim went and they found their avodah zarah, whose name was Dagan. They found its head and its two hands are broken. And it says from that point on, the priests of Dagan would not step on that place where they found their broken idol. So you see that even though it was broken, they still worshipped that spot. They held it was a sacred spot. Amaloi, he answered back, Misham Raya, that's Raya. When they said that they worshipped that spot, they worshipped the spot. They felt the spot was what broke their Dagon. So they stopped being Dagon and they worshipped the new victor, the new king. The Ami Hachi Shavki Isura Ladagan. Va'asa Esav La'ala Miftan. The Shavki Israel Ladagan Va'asa Esav La'ala Miftan. It went away from Dagon and it landed on that spot on the ground where it had broken. So they're just worshiping a spot. They're not worshiping the thing that was bottled. Esvei. Our Mishnah says if you found Shivleit Samim, it's Mutter Hashivrei Avazvicham Masur. The Gemara is forgetting for now what we had said before. It's making the same deduction that we had said before. So Rabbi Yochanan's asking on him that this is Masha. You find Shivleit Masurim. But that's that according to Reish Lakish, we say that as long as it's broken, it doesn't make a difference how it broke. Even if it's an avodah zarah itself, it loses its status. So why would a shivri avodas kechavim be aser? So the Gemara loytem shivri avodas kechavim masurim. It's not coming to tell you that shivri avodas kechavim masurim. Ela ema hatzlamim asman asurim. It's come. The point of the Mishnah. And for some reason, I don't understand exactly why we're not saying like we said before, that it's coming because of the Seifa. Maybe the Gemara will get to that later. But now what the Gemara is saying is, it's going to tell you a different thing. It's telling you that Slamim, it's coming to tell you not the din of the broken Slamim. It wants to tell you that if you found a non-broken Selim, it would be also stomach or a mayor. We had the machlekes in the first Mishnah. A mayor says if you find any kind of tselem, it's also. And then we had Rav Shimon Gamliel, and I forgot who the middle mandama was, who say, I think it's the Chachamim, the Rabbanan, who say it has to either be holding an object, or according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, if it's holding three specific objects, Rav Shimon Gamliel, if it's holding any object. But a stam tselem, they say, is mutter. So our Mishnah is coming to tell you tzlamim. If you want shivrei tzlamim, it's mutter. But if it was a whole tzelem, it would be aser. Like Rameir wouldn't have to be holding something. Sefer the Gemara. What we have a kash on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan and Rameir lishmahu l'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yochanan holds that are like we had explained before. Rabbi Yochanan had asked this as a kasha, so he holds that. He holds that this mission is not like Rameir. It's not coming to be Maitzi Rameir. It's not coming to say Stam like Rameir. He's saying it's a machlekes both, like we explained in Shmuel before. He holds it's a machlekes both in Rameir and both according to Rameir as well as the Rabbanan. Which is saying that Shivrei Tzlamim are going to be mutter, but if it's a whole tzelem, then we'll have the machlokes Ramei and the Rabban. But with the Ramei and Nishmul Rabbanon, Lav Amar Rameir Tzlam Masurim Shivri Tzlam Mutarim. We see that in Rameir he's machal between Tzlam and Shivri Tzlam. Rabban Avodas Gechavim Nami He Asur Shivri Mutarim. We're going to make the same chiluk according to the Rabbanan as well. Rameir said it's only Shivri Tzlam, but according to the Rabbanan, we're going to have to understand this not to be talking about Stam Etzelim. We have to understand to be talking about Avodas Gechavim, and you're going to have the same distinction that the Avodas Kechavim is Aser and the Shavra is Mutarin. So how could it be that Rabbi Yochanan holds that the Shavarim are Aser? How according to Rabbi Yochanan, who holds that Shavarim that break on their own are Aser, why are we saying that the Shavarim of this Avodah Zara is going to be mutter in the Rabbanan? So the Gemara.
I mean, according to Rabbi Yochanan holds that it's Aser, we would see from here that even the Rabbanan who hold that the Avodas Kechavim would be mutter.
The Rabbanan must be talking about Avodas Kechavim because they hold Slamim, general Slamim are mutter. So we're talking about Avodas Kechavim. We're having the same distinction. So it must be that Avodas Kechavim is mutter. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it shouldn't be mutter because he holds Bittul Me'aleh is not mutter. Zak Gemara, Hachi Hashta Hasam Eme Avdum, Eme Lo Avdum. You can't compare the two cases. Ligabi, in the Mishnah, I'm sorry, that how could you compare what we're saying in the Mishnah to our machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish? We don't know for sure that they were ovid it. Even though we don't know whether they were ovid these slum and v'imtim slama of them, maybe it's a possibility that they were mavatal it. Avodas Kechavim, but when we're talking about Avodas Kechavim, which means that we know that they were ovid it, miyema de batla. How do you're not certain that it was batla? You only have a suffix. In the case of the slumim, it's a svek sveka. But in the case of Avodas Kechavim, where it's a vadai, you don't just the suffix that maybe they were mevatel. That's not enough to be mevatel. To remove that suffix is not enough. Havi suffix uvadai vein suffix meitzim midei vadai. You cannot say if something we know is definitely Avodas Kechavim, we can't say possibly because we found it broken. That means it lost its status. Now we're going to go on a little tangent on this theory that ain't suffix moitzim midei vadei. Vatanya, chava shemes v'niach megura malaya peris. A chava that died. Chava is someone who's a Talmud Chacham, and we know he's careful about meisers. But he died, and he left over a barrel full of produce. Afilu b'nei yaiman, even if they were just harvested that day. Harehem b'cheskes misukanim. We can assume that the chava removed all the trumas and meisers. It's definitely a tevel before he removed trumas and meisers. How can we say that it's vadai mesukan? Maybe it's a suffix and a vadai. It's a vadai was tevel, and now it's a suffix whether trumas and meisers were taken. So Hasam vadai uvadai the vadai asrinu. No, over here it's not a suffix whether the chaver took off the trumas and meisers. He certainly took off the meisers. That's not a suffix. That is a vada. We know he for sure takes off the trumas and meisers. The usual way saying a suffix is suffixal. Or you could say the other way around. It's taka. It's a suffix whether he removed the trumas and meisers, but it's a suffix of whether it was ever tevel. After the avik terabashia. There's a way to avoid having your Paris ever become tevel in the first place. A person can use a loophole to stop his tvu of becoming subject to trumas. If he brings it into the house with the chaff that he never was misakin the sequence is that you have to first be goimer the avoda of your tfuah, then you bring it into your house. That bringing it into his house, bringing it over the threshold of the house, makes it that it's now becomes subject to trumas and maises. But if a person were to bring it in before the gemar malacha of the tfuah, that would avoid it ever becoming tevel midarais in the first place. Why would you do that? Even though midirabanan, he's still not going to be allowed to eat it. He can only eat achilas aroi, not achilas kva. And midirabanan, he can't even eat, I think, achilas aroi, but he could give it to his behemoths. So okay, so that's the way we avoid that. Another question on this concept. There was one bad guy, Rashi says, some tough guy in the place called Riman. The advice says he had an illegitimate child, or an illegitimate stillborn child. Sheitila nefel a bar. He took the fetus and threw it into a bar. Ubar kain v'hitzitz. The kain went to look. Leidim zachar and nekeva. He went to look if the nefel, this stillborn child, was a zachar or nekeva. He was doing his due diligence to tell the mother how long she, because you made tyra and you made tumah. One is for 40 days, one is for 80 days. So he wanted to know. He had to know the situation. The Chum said, even though the Kohen leaned over the nefel, where the nefel was, it's tar. He looked there, he couldn't find it, and we could assume that even the Kohen went to look for the nefel, he couldn't find it, didn't see anything. We could assume that an animal dragged it away, and it was no longer in the pit. In fact, the nefel. We know that there was a nefel there. Safek Garua, it's only a Safek who was pulled away, it was dragged away. Safek Garua, maybe it wasn't. Again, we see a Safek is Maitzimidei Vadai. You shouldn't say that the woman, that this person definitely put a nefel in the bar. It was something that resembled a nefel. We would look to see if it was Zachar Nekeva, so it must be that it was a nefel. How could you say it's just something similar to a nefel? He went to look for two things. First, he wanted to look, is it some kind of just some type of expulsion that the woman had, a placenta or something like that, but it wasn't actual nefel, or if it was an actual nefel. So it was a double question. He wasn't sure in the first place whether it was a nefel, and then he wanted to see if it is a nefel, was Zachar Nekeva. So now he has a svek seika. If there was a nefel in the first place, we don't know. And if there was a nefel, maybe an animal dragged it away. So therefore, that's why the Chama were matter. The Ibai saying another possibility, kivin shechuldu batis mashisham vadai guru. An animal pulling it away is a vadai. They don't leave. Nothing will be left. They'll come every single day to pull away whatever's there. Esvei. Going back to, I think, the original question of Rabbi Yochanan on Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says, if you have something that on its own broke, Rish Lakish says it becomes bottled from its status as an Avodah Zara. Rish Yochanan disagrees. Esvei, Matzah Tavnis Yad Tavnis Regel, Ha'eru Asurim, Neshik Yotz Ben Neva. We said in our Mishnah, if you found a hand or a foot of a former full picture of a person, they're also because such a thing is never. Amai Hashvam Ninu. It's pieces. If it's pieces, even if it fell, even if it broke, it's the Avodah L'chayra, it's bottled from its Avodah Zara. So the Gemara take a Shmuel, but I'm not b'sisasan. We already explained this earlier. Shmuel had explained that we're not talking about a suffix that it could have broken on its own. We're talking about something that has a base to it, so we know it had chashivas even as a hand or a foot. Esvei avichavim mevatel avodas kechavim shaloi v'shel chaverei. One avodah kechavim can break if he breaks his own avodah zara or even his friend's avodah zara. It loses its status as an avodah zara, and therefore it's not asav hana anymore. But Yisrael ain't mevatel avodas kechavim shaloi v'kechavim. But Yisrael is not able to do so. If Yisrael breaks a guy's Avodah Zara, it doesn't lose its status. Why is it if the Yisrael breaks it any worse than if it broke on its own that we say the guy recognizes the futility of his Avodah Zara? So if he did it, it should be the same thing. Amar Abaya shepichsa. We're not talking about where the Yid broke it. We're talking about where he damaged it. He reduced it in chashivas. He banged it a little bit. He dented it, but it's still intact. So that's the reason why it's not bottle. But the Einachanami, if the Yid would have broken it, then it would have been not any worse than Nishba Meila. Once it's dented, even though it's not missing any pieces, it becomes bottle. So why are we saying when the Yid does it, it's not bottle? So that's only when a Avodah Zara does it. When Avodah Zara does it, when the Avodah Chacham does it, he's showing that he wants to be mevatel. But if a Yid is mefachas it, if he makes it less, that's not the same thing as where it broke on its own. Because when a guy does it, it's not just the fact that it's broken; it's the fact that he caused it to break. So that shows a more of a ratzon for betel. But if a Yid did it with totally depending on the fact, the svara, that if it's found broken, the guy is going to say it couldn't defend itself. But over here, it's not fully broken, and there's no indication that the guy wants to be mevatel it. So therefore, it's not batel. I could say even when the Yisrael reduces it, it also being mevatel it, in theory. So that the Gzeres HaKasav is that a Yisrael who owns a Avodah Zara can never become batel. We don't want Yid. The Torah was geyser that anything that belongs to Yisrael is aser la'olam. The Torah says that it's aser for forever. So we're worried that maybe when the Yid picked it up to damage it, he was magbiat and he owned it, and therefore it's not able to be batel. Like we just said, if it belongs to Yisrael, it's unable to ever become batel. So we're going to ask now a series of questions where we see that a bunch of questions on Reish Lakish. We see that Avodah Zaras can be batel, and all of them we're going to answer the same answer that it's talking about where a Yid broke it, and therefore we have this gzeira like Rava just said, and the Gemara, the Rishonim ask, the Mefarshim ask, why do we keep asking questions and giving the same teretz? They say it's just we want to see if there's another teretz. Eisvei. Akum shehevi avanim in a markulis. Markulis is a kind of Avodah Zara where they have a pile of stones, and they took someone who Avodah Zara went and took one of those stones from there. And they used it as stones. They used it as paving materials. Mutaris. It's mutar because he was mevatel. It's from being an Avodah Zara. Yisrael shehevi avanim in a markulis, but the Yid who did that asuras. It's aser. Why is when a Yid did it any less than if it happened on its own? Hachanami could Rava would answer the same teretz like Rava because we're afraid that the Yid would be magbiat for himself and therefore can never become bat. Eisvei avicham sheshiva avodas kechavim letzarchai. An avodas kechavim that shaved off pieces from his Avodah Zara because he wanted to use it. He wanted to take splinters to light a fire. He v'shipuah mutar. Both Avodah Zara as well as the splinters are mutar. That act is being mevatel his Avodah Zara. L'tzarcha, but if he does it to improve, he's shaving the Avodah Zara to make it look better. He asura, the Avodah Zara is also v'shipeh mutar, but the shipeh he's mevatel it from. He doesn't want it to be part of the Avodah Zara anymore. Yisrael sheshiba v'zicham bein l'tzarcha he v'shipeh asur. Yid did it. Everything is asur. So why do we say, why is it any less than if it happened on its own? Amai Rava will answer the same teretz like Rava because the Yid was kainet and therefore it's us.
When he does it for the tzarcha, Yisrael sheshipa avodas kechavim ben letzarcha, letzarcha ben letzarcha. I understand when he does it for his own needs,
Yeah.
but if he's doing it for the avodah zara's needs,
How does it lose its status as an avodah zara?
right?
The chum. I'm saying, what are you asking?
Meaning, then he's doing it for the. He's not being. There's no question of him being mevatel. Like, what are we?
Well, you're saying what's the chiddush? When he did it letzarcha, when he did it for
Yeah.
yes, I think it's just for symmetry. We're saying every case. It's not much of a chiddush there. Eisvei, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shaychik v'zeirei ala ruach matal yam. If someone has a metal avodah zara, a yid has a metal avodah zara, what should he do with it? He should grind it up and distribute it, throw it to the winds, or throw it into the ocean. Amaloi, afhi nasa zevel. They said to him, you shouldn't do that, because if you throw it in the wind, it will become fertilizer, and you'll be benefiting from it. And it's also to ever have any hana from avodah zara. Why don't we say that why is it any different? Why doesn't it become batal? Because it was destroyed. It wasn't make a difference how it got destroyed. Again, the same problem. A yid is doing it. It's not batal. If he found a darkain, the darkain is on the next amud we have in the Mishnah. A darkain, Rashi says, is a kind of nachash. Does not say anything about it flying. So, but you can draw your own conclusions of what drakain and serpent or a nachash is. But its head was cut off. If you don't know if a yid did it or a guy did it, then it's mutter. But if a yid did it, then it's for sure that it's asa. Why do we say it's batal? If the guy did it, it's certainly batal. If the yid did it, it should also be batal. Again, like Rava. The Mishnah over there is saying that if you have an asherah, you have a tree that was nevad, that was used for avodah zara, and you're not allowed to plant vegetables underneath it. In the summer, you certainly cannot do so because you're benefiting from the shade provided by the asherah. And we say Rabbi Yossi says you can't even do it in the winter. Why not? Because the leaves will fall onto the vegetables, even though it's not providing shade in the winter. There's no sun, but it will provide fertilizer when the leaves fall onto the vegetables. Why don't we say that the leaves that fall down are something that broke on its own? There's no yidden involved here. You're not going to be able to say like Rava and say that it becomes batal when it separates from the tree. So that's different. When a piece comes from the original avodah zara, we don't say it's batal me'eleh. Everyone would agree. He's not going to think that my avodah zara is worthless because the leaf fell out of it, because the tree is still there. What about the case we had before? We took off chips that we said, if the guy took it off for the purpose of the avodah zara, the shipa, the chips that he took off of the pieces, the splinters that he took off of it become mutter. They're batal because he doesn't want them to be part of avodah zara. So why, even though the actual avodah zara is still there, so why is the tree different? That we say the leaves that fall off of it remain asad frana. He says no. The tree, it's normal for a tree to shed its leaves, so that's not going to in any way detract from his appreciation of the deity of the tree. But a statue, when he himself would be a dime, goes and cuts off a piece, that is a bittul of that piece. Rish Lakish turned the tables finally and asked a kasha to Rabbi Yochanan. Kan shebaroisa ilan shel hegdish. If you have I'm not going to start this. This is a little complicated. We'll do this one tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a great